For a very long time, the galaxy had watched humanity from far away. And most alien civilizations thought humans were nothing special. They saw Earth as a small, noisy planet with a young species that was still learning how to travel between stars. In official galactic records, humans were listed as developing, a polite way of saying weak, harmless, and not worth worrying about. Many alien leaders believed humans would need at least another 1,000 years before becoming important in the galaxy. Some even joked that humanity would probably destroy itself before ever joining the interstellar community. So when humans finally sent out a long-range message into space, introducing themselves and offering peaceful contact, the galaxy reacted with amusement instead of interest. Alien diplomats laughed at the poor quality of the message and the simple technology humans used. The signal was friendly, polite, and full of hope. According to some, to the older civilizations, it sounded like a child knocking on the door of giants. Expecting them to open it kindly, a few alien scientists were curious. They liked the creativity and emotions in the human message. Humans talked about cooperation, learning, and sharing knowledge. But these scientists were a minority. Most species thought humans were dreaming far above their level. They saw Earth as an amusing new voice in the galaxy, but not a voice that mattered. Galactic news networks covered the human announcement with lighthearted commentary. Reporters made jokes, calling humans the enthusiastic toddlers of space. Talk show hosts invited experts who explained why humans were too new, too emotional, and too unprepared for the challenges of the galaxy. Some even said humanity should focus on fixing Earth instead of sending messages to the stars. To them, humans reaching out was sweet, almost cute, but not serious. The galaxy had thousands of years of history, countless wars, alliances, and discoveries. Compared to this long timeline, humanity was like a spark that had appeared only a moment ago. Many species believed humans simply did not understand how dangerous the universe truly was. They thought Earth had been lucky to grow safely in a quiet, protected corner of the galaxy, shielded from hostile empires and cosmic threats. In their opinion, humans mistook that luck for safety. When diplomats from major civilizations reviewed the human message, they found nothing threatening about it. Humans talked about peace, friendship, culture, and science. They did not mention war, defense, or strategy to the galaxy. This was proof that humans were still innocent to innocent. They had not learned the brutal rules that governed interstellar politics. They did not know that many species survived only by showing strength. Humans believed kindness would open doors. But in the galaxy, kindness often made you a target. A few alien historians tried to warn their governments that new species could be unpredictable. They reminded everyone that some powerful empires in the past had started as small, underestimated planets, but their warnings were ignored. The galaxy had become lazy and proud over the centuries. Old civilizations believed they had seen everything, and humans were nothing new to them, just another young race taking its first steps. Some species planned to wait and see what humans would do next. Others thought humanity would soon ask for help or protection because new species often did. No one imagined that humans were already preparing something unexpected, something much greater than their neighbors understood. But this truth remained hidden behind Earth's simple introduction message. Meanwhile, on human social media, people were excited about the idea of aliens hearing their greeting. Humans celebrated the possibility of meeting other life. They even imagined friendly visitors arriving with gifts or knowledge. Humanity's hope was honest and bright, but the galaxy saw it as naive. Some alien leaders said that humans were too optimistic to survive, believing that this positivity came from not understanding real danger yet. When humanity built its first long-range ship capable of leaving the solar system, the galaxy took notice, but again, no one was impressed. The ship looked slow compared to alien vessels, and its technology seemed old-fashioned. Many alien engineers used it as a teaching example for their students on how beginners approach space travel. The galaxy thought humanity was centuries behind them and would stay behind. What none of them knew was that humans were learning fast, much faster than anyone expected. They were studying alien signals, analyzing strange energy patterns, and observing ship movements in nearby sectors. Humans were curious, creative, and quick to adapt. But because they remained quiet, the galaxy assumed they were weak in the end. The first contact moment became a symbol of how deeply the galaxy underestimated humanity. While aliens laughed, humans listened, learned, and prepared. In this mistake, the belief that humans were small, slow, and harmless would come back to shake the entire galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. When the Tsar Dominion first noticed humanity's message spreading across the stars, they did not feel curious or amused like the rest of the galaxy. Instead, they felt threatened. The Tsar were an old empire. Built on conquest and fear, they believed that any young species showing signs of ambition should be crushed before it became strong enough to fight back. To them, humanity's signal was not a friendly greeting. It was a warning that humans were starting to grow, starting to reach outward, starting to dream big. And the Tsar never allowed new players into the game of power. Their leaders gathered in a dark war chamber, surrounded by maps of star systems they had already conquered. They studied Earth's location, technology level, and population.
Wow.
Their generals spoke with confidence, saying the humans would be an easy target. They described humans as soft, unprepared, and too emotional. They insisted that destroying Earth now would save the Tsar trouble in the future. By ending humanity early, they believed they were securing their empire for centuries more, so the decision was made quickly, too quickly. Maybe the Tsar Dominion activated their invasion fleets. Thousands of warships armed with heavy cannons and advanced shielding. These fleets had destroyed dozens of species before, and the Tsar expected this mission to be the easiest one yet. Many officers treated it like a celebration, not a war. They joked, drank, and placed bets on how fast Earth would fall. Some predicted it would take a week. Others said a single day. A few claimed it might only take hours when the Tsar crossed the border into human space. They met almost no resistance. The early warning satellites were destroyed in seconds. Human communication relays were shot down. Leaving many colonies blind and confused, Earth did not send any warships to greet them. No defense fleets, no coordinated attack. The Tsar were delighted. They believed humanity was already panicking, or maybe even surrendering. In their minds, the battle was practically over before it had truly begun. As they moved deeper into the Sol system, the Tsar broadcast a message across all human channels. Their voice was cold and superior. They announced that Earth was now property of the Tsar Dominion, and that humanity had only two choices: complete surrender or complete destruction. They expected humans to beg for mercy, to cry, to send desperate messages pleading for peace. But something strange happened instead. There was silence. The Tsar found the silence amusing at first. He thought humans were too overwhelmed to respond. They continued destroying small stations and scanning planets, waiting for Earth to panic. But humanity remained quiet. Too quiet, it bothered some Tsar commanders. Because most species reacted quickly when their home was under attack, humans were acting differently, unpredictably. Still, the Tsar pushed on, soon. Their scouts reported something unusual. Human outposts were empty. Some colonies showed signs of a quick evacuation, leaving behind half-finished meals, personal belongings, and running machines. There were no human soldiers, no civilians, no defenders anywhere. It was as if humanity had vanished within hours. Entire settlements looked abandoned, but not destroyed. And that confused the Tsar more than anything. Even though the situation felt strange, the Tsar celebrated anyway. Their leaders declared victory to the galaxy, claiming they had defeated humanity with almost no effort. They sent out triumphant messages, bragging about how fast they had conquered the weak Terrans. Tsar soldiers cheered inside their ships, confident that they had just completed the easiest invasion in history. What the Tsar did not know was that the silence wasn't fear, it was planning. Humans were not frozen in panic. They were preparing for something the Tsar could not imagine. Humanity had gone dark not because they were defeated, but because they were moving into the shadows, away from the Tsar's eyes. They were hiding their ships, securing their communications, and activating old secret projects that had been built only for the gravest emergencies. Back in the Sol system, deep underground and hidden behind thick layers of radiation shielding, human commanders watched the Tsar invasion quietly. They monitored every movement. Every ship, every attack, they were not powerless, they were patient. They studied the Tsar's patterns, weaknesses, and technology. They calculated how many hours they needed before humanity's real defenses would be ready. The Tsar believed the humans were gone forever, but the truth was very different. Humanity had never stopped fighting. They had simply changed the rules of the game. While the Tsar laughed and celebrated their victory, humanity was preparing a response that would shake the galaxy. A response powerful enough to turn the hunters into prey and to silence the loudest empire in the stars. The Tsar thought they had ended a young species, but they had only woken up something far more dangerous. Soon, they would learn the terrible mistake they had made. After the first wave of Tsar attacks, something strange began to happen across human space. All the noise, activity, and signals that usually filled Terran systems started to disappear one by one. Within hours, human communication networks fell silent. Colonies that once buzzed with life and light suddenly went dark. Observation posts that had operated for decades stopped transmitting at first. The galaxy assumed this silence meant only one thing: the Tsar had won quickly. Just as they had promised, alien civilizations watched the situation through long-range scanners, expecting to see ruined planets or desperate refugee ships escaping into deep space. But there was nothing like that. Instead, sensors picked up empty stations, quiet trade routes, and abandoned habitats drifting without power. It was as if humanity had simply vanished overnight, leaving behind only shadows of their civilization. Many aliens believed the humans had been destroyed so completely that there was no one left to fight, no one left to resist. Some even said the humans must have surrendered before the real battle began. But not everyone trusted the simple explanation. A few neutral observers noticed that the silence was too clean. Two organized human systems were not burning. They were simply empty, untouched, quiet. That was unusual. The Tsar were known for violent conquests. They normally left behind wreckage and chaos. Yet in human space there was no smoke. No explosions, just absence. It made some observers feel uneasy, as if something was being hidden on purpose. The Tsar, however, did not question anything. They were too busy celebrating. Their commanders declared that humanity had fallen faster than any species before. They claimed that humans must have run away or collapsed in fear. They broadcast messages mocking humans for dying silently. As these messages spread across the galaxy, most civilizations accepted the idea that humanity was finished. The story was easy to believe after all. Humans were inexperienced, peaceful, and poorly equipped for war. Who would expect them to survive a sudden attack from the strongest empire in the region? But deep inside the darkened colonies and silent outposts, something else was happening. Human ships were not destroyed. They had been moved. Human stations were not abandoned. They had been evacuated. Everything was done quickly, quietly, and with purpose. Human commanders had triggered an emergency protocol that had never been used before. This protocol instructed every Terran world to go into complete blackout mode. This meant turning off all signals, all communication, all navigation lights, and anything that could reveal their positions to the Tsar and the rest of the galaxy. This blackout made it look like humanity had been wiped out. But in reality, it was a strategic retreat into the darkness, a way to confuse the enemy, and by time, most species would never dare to do such a thing, because shutting down communication usually led to chaos. But humans were different. They were used to adapting quickly. They trusted their commanders, and they trusted each other. So when the order came, entire populations shifted underground into hidden shelters and armored bunkers built long ago for emergencies. The Tsar scouts who tried to explore deeper into human territory reported strange findings. They found cities without people, buildings still warm from recent use, machines still running, food still fresh. It was clear the humans had left in a hurry, but not in fear. It was more like they knew exactly where they needed to go, and they didn't want the Tsar to find them. Some scouts disappeared while investigating these empty locations. Their ships went off the grid, lost in the dark region of space surrounding Earth. The Tsar blamed technical issues or human traps, but they never found the missing crews. Slowly, doubts began to spread among a few in the galaxy. They wondered why humans, a supposedly weak species, had reacted so differently from others who faced the Tsar. Most species either fought desperately or surrendered loudly, but humans simply vanished, as if they had prepared for this moment long ago. Their silence felt too controlled, too perfect. It did not look like defeat. It looked like planning. Meanwhile, the Tsar's confidence grew stronger. They shared images of empty human stations as proof of their victory. They told the galaxy that the Terrans had been erased, their voices removed from the great conversation of the stars. They were sure that Earth itself would soon fall into their hands. Maybe even without a fight, their soldiers laughed, believing the humans were already nothing more than a memory. But humanity was not gone. They were not broken or destroyed. They were watching, listening, and waiting. The disappearance that confused the galaxy was not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strategy. Humans had pulled back into the shadows so they could prepare something bigger, something powerful, something the Tsar had never imagined, and soon, everyone would understand why the silence of humanity was far more dangerous than any battlefield scream. The galaxy would learn that humans had not disappeared. They were only gathering their strength for the moment they would rise again. When the Tsar Dominion announced to the galaxy that humanity was gone, the news spread faster than any war report had before, across thousands of star systems. Screens lit up with the same headline: Tsar victory, Terrans eliminated in record time, and for the first time in years. The galaxy celebrated together, not because they loved the Tsar, but because they were relieved humans had been unpredictable, strange, and different from other young species. Their creativity, emotions, and rapid technological growth made many older civilizations uncomfortable. Now, with the Tsar claiming they had erased humanity, everyone felt safer, or at least they thought they did. Merchants on distant worlds started discussing who would get Earth's resources. Some said the Tsar would keep everything for themselves. Others said the Tsar might sell Earth's oceans, forests, and minerals to the highest bidder. Many traders were excited, imagining new business routes through what used to be human space. They talked about how much profit could be made from controlling Terran trade lines. To them, humanity was not a tragedy, was an opportunity. News networks repeated the Tsar's victory speeches again and again, showing images of dark human outposts and empty colonies. Reporters praised the Tsar commanders for their efficiency, saying they had ended a potential problem before it grew too large. They described the Terrans as a species that tried to rise too fast and paid the price. Some anchors even mocked humans for sending such a hopeful message to the stars, only to be crushed days later in political halls across the galaxy. Leaders congratulated the Tsar Dominion personally. Their messages were filled with polite words, but underneath them was relief. Many alien governments had secretly feared that humans might become powerful someday. Humans were known for their unusual thinking, their risky experiments, and their emotional bravery. They were the type of species who might surprise the galaxy, maybe even reshape it. The idea of such a species rising unchecked made many leaders nervous. Now that the Tsar claimed to have destroyed them, those leaders felt they no longer had to worry about the future Terran influence. Even empires who disliked the Tsar still sent messages acknowledging their achievement because it benefited them too. A potential competitor was removed, a wild card was no longer in the deck. Rival empires that normally fought with the Tsar found themselves strangely united in agreement. They all believed that the Terrans had been eliminated before becoming a real threat. It was one of the few things they all felt good about. On entertainment channels, comedians joked about humans, creating skits where Terrans panicked and ran in circles. Pretending they had no idea what to do when the Tsar arrived, audiences laughed. Not knowing that humanity had reacted in a way that no species had ever done before, they simply accepted the story they were told, because it was easier to believe that the Tsar had crushed the Terrans than to imagine something more complicated. In universities, scholars debated the short lifespan of humanity as a spacefaring species. They treated it like a historical lesson, studying how humans had stepped into the galaxy for only a brief moment before being erased. They wrote academic papers about humanity's mistakes, claiming that Terrans should have stayed hidden. or moved more slowly, or begged for protection from stronger empires. Students read these studies and nodded, thinking humanity had been foolish to dream so big in such a dangerous universe. Only a few individuals across the galaxy felt something was wrong. A handful of diplomats and scientists kept asking the same question. If the humans were truly defeated, why were their worlds so clean? Why were there no burned cities, no destroyed fleets drifting in space, no wreckage? Why did everything look empty rather than ruined? They noticed things the Tsar tried to ignore: missing scouts, unstable scanner readings, strange energy patterns around the Sol system. But no one listened to them. Their warnings were drowned out by the overwhelming sound of celebration. Because the galaxy wanted to celebrate, they wanted to believe the danger was gone. They wanted to believe the Tsar had done them a favor. It felt comforting to think the humans were nothing more than a short story with a sad ending. A small species that tried and failed, but far beneath the noise of the galaxy's applause. Hidden behind the echoes of laughter and pride. Humanity was doing something none of them expected. They were gathering strength, preparing silently, and waiting for the perfect moment to rise again. The galaxy believed the Terrans had bowed their heads for the last time, but soon they would understand just how wrong they were, and when the truth finally emerged, the celebrations would turn into shock, then into fear. While the galaxy continued to celebrate the Tsar Dominion's victory, a few individuals across different star systems began to feel something was wrong. They could not explain it at first, but the silence in human space did not feel like defeat. It felt unnatural, too perfect, too controlled. Normally when the Tsar conquered a species, the aftermath was full of chaos fires. Broken ships, ruined cities, older signals screaming for help. But human space was quiet in a different way. It was calm, clean, and strangely organized. Some neutral observers working in deep space listening posts noticed odd patterns in the data. Their sensors reported strange gravitational distortions near the edges of the Sol system, as if something massive was hiding just outside detection range. The distortions did not match any known natural phenomenon. One scientist described it as a shadow with weight, something that was there but refused to be seen. When they tried to investigate further, their instruments froze or malfunctioned. The errors were too targeted to be random. Patrol ships sent by curious neighboring civilizations tried to take a closer look at abandoned human colonies. But each time a ship approached, its sensors scrambled, readings flickered, and navigation systems glitched. It was as if the space itself was telling them to turn back. Some pilots claimed they saw faint outlines of structures or ships hiding behind strange energy fields. But their recordings showed nothing. The higher governments dismissed these reports as anxiety or technical failures. They trusted the Tsar version of events more than they trusted a few confused pilots. Meanwhile, inside the Tsar Dominion, a few military intelligence officers were also starting to worry. Their scouts were disappearing too often. Whole teams went silent while exploring deeper into human territory. At first, the Tsar blamed equipment issues or cosmic anomalies. But as the number of lost squads grew, even they felt a hint of fear. Yet their leaders refused to believe anything was wrong. They had already announced their victory to the galaxy. Admitting uncertainty now would make them look weak. So instead of questioning the situation, the Tsar chose pride. Still, whispers began spreading among those who were paying close attention. They pointed out that humans had always been creative and unpredictable. They adapted fast, sometimes too fast. Their history was full of stories where they turned disasters into victories. Some species remembered how humans had survived events that should have wiped them out: plagues, wars, environmental collapses. They said humans had a strange talent for coming back stronger after every setback. But these warnings were treated like paranoid rumors. Nobody wanted to believe that the Terrans might have survived. What confused observers the most was the pattern of human evacuation. When colonies are destroyed by an enemy, the traces are messy fires, explosions, scattered evidence, dead machines. But human worlds were empty in a way that looked intentional. Many areas were cleaned, systems powered down smoothly, and certain data cores were missing as if taken on purpose. These signs suggested preparation, not panic. One engineer analyzing satellite images remarked, This looks less like destruction, and more like a curtain has been closed. Another strange clue appeared when energy signatures were detected near abandoned Terran space stations. The signatures were faint, but unusually stable. They did not match any Tsar technology, nor any known defensive system. It was as if massive objects were being quietly powered up behind layers of interference. Yet every attempt to analyze the signals failed, causing scanners to shut down and computers to reboot. After losing too many devices, observers were ordered to stop investigating. Despite the growing list of oddities, the majority of the galaxy refused to change their minds. They believed the Tsar, because believing them was easier than considering the truth. It was comfortable to assume the humans were gone, but deep inside, a few scientists and diplomats felt uneasy. Some had nightmares about silent Terran fleets waiting in the dark. Others had dreams of enormous shapes moving behind the shadows of human space. Whenever they mentioned these fears, they were told to stop imagining things. Still, the sense of wrongness spread, like a quiet breeze slipping under a locked door. Even those who trusted the Tsar felt a strange tension whenever they looked toward the Sol system. The silence there did not feel peaceful, it felt like the silence before a storm. A heavy, suspenseful quiet that carried the weight of something unseen. Something powerful, but no one, not even the few who doubted, realized the full truth. They did not know what humanity had been building in secret. They did not know about the hidden shipyards, the underground bunkers, the silent fleets, gathering strength. The strange gravitational distortions were not natural. They were the first hints of something enormous. Something waiting, while the galaxy enjoyed its celebration. Humanity was quietly tightening its grip, preparing for the moment it would step out of the darkness. The galaxy thought humans were finished, but they had only gone silent, and soon, that silence would be shattered in a way that no one could ignore. For weeks, the galaxy had been staring at the silent region of human space. Trying to understand what had really happened, most believed the Tsar's victory story. Even with the strange signs, even with the missing scouts, the sensor failures, and the unnatural quiet. They forced themselves to believe that humanity was gone. It was easier than accepting a mystery. It was safer than imagining a threat growing in the dark. But everything changed in a single moment, one moment that shattered the galaxy's confidence and made every species sit up in fear. It began with a flicker. A small disturbance on long-range scanners at first. Operators thought it was just another glitch, the kind that usually appeared near Terran space. But this glitch didn't fade like the others. Instead, it grew clearer, sharper, louder. The interference peeled back like a veil being lifted, revealing something that had been hiding right in front of them. And then they saw it, from the darkness around the Sol system. Gigantic shapes began to emerge. At first, only shadows appeared, massive outlines that blocked the stars behind them. But as they moved closer to detectable range, their true form came into view. They were ships, but not like any the galaxy had ever seen. Their size dwarfed even the largest Tsar battleships. Their hulls looked alive with shifting armor plates, glowing energy veins, and powerful shield fields that hummed like thunder trapped in metal. These were Terran ships, but on a scale no one thought humans were capable of building. They were Terran Dreadnoughts. These colossal vessels slid out of the shadows with silent, controlled grace. One by one, dozens of them appeared, forming a massive wall of metal and light around the core of human space. Their formation was perfect. No gaps, no errors, no movement wasted. It was like watching an ancient sea monster rising from deep ocean waters, slow, terrifying, unstoppable. The galaxy realized instantly that humanity had not been defeated. They had not run from the Tsar. They had not disappeared in fear. They had been preparing something unimaginable. Inside observation rooms across the galaxy, silence replaced celebration. Technicians stared at the screens with wide eyes. Unable to speak, generals froze in their chairs. Their faces went pale as they studied the dreadnoughts, because even from a distance, it was clear that these ships were built for only one purpose complete. Overwhelming war. The dreadnoughts' hulls were engraved with Terran symbols. Some bore the markings of ancient Earth nations, unified under one banner. Others had names written in bold letters: Titan, Leviathan, Oblivion, Resolute. These names alone sent chills through observers. There was nothing friendly or peaceful about them. These were war machines designed with the full force of human anger and determination. Then, in perfect synchronization, the Terran Dreadnoughts powered up their main engines, sending out shockwaves of energy that rippled across space. Every scanner, every detector, every listening device felt it. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the galactic database. The power output was too high, too concentrated. Many believed that if even one of those dreadnoughts fired at full strength, it could break a moon in half. The galaxy understood something terrifying at that moment. Humanity had gone silent, not because it was defeated, but because it wanted time to finish building these monsters. While the Tsar were bragging about victory, humanity was preparing its answer. While alien empires mocked the Terrans, humans were assembling a fleet that could change the balance of power overnight. And now, standing in a perfect, unbroken line, these dreadnoughts showed the galaxy exactly what humans had been hiding. A sudden broadcast went out from the Terran line, but it was not made of words. It was a single signal, deep and powerful. A coded message that spread across the stars like a drumbeat. It said only two things: humanity lives. Humanity is ready across the galaxy. Governments panicked. News stations froze. The Tsar Dominion, so confident just days before, suddenly felt fear crawling up its spine. The dreadnoughts had not even moved yet, but their presence alone was enough to destroy the illusion of Tsar power. The empire that claimed to have destroyed humanity was now staring at a force that could destroy them instead. Even worse, it was clear that humans had built these ships without anyone noticing. No spies detected them, no sensors found them. No traders whispered about secret shipyards. Humanity had done the impossible. They had hidden a fleet the size of a small empire right under the galaxy's nose. And the dreadnoughts were not just guarding human space. They were preparing to move. Their engines glowed brighter. Their formation tightened, and their weapon systems activated with a deep, vibrating hum. Every sound, every movement, every flicker of energy carried the same message: the silence is over. Humanity is coming. And the galaxy finally understood the terrible mistake it had made, believing the Terrans were weak, believing they were gone, believing the Tsar had won, because now the humans were no longer the quiet, hopeful newcomers. They were the storm rising from the dark, ready to decide the future of the stars. When the Terran dreadnoughts finally began to move, the galaxy felt the shift like a tremor passing through space itself. These were not ordinary ships. They were giants made of steel, fire, and human will. And when giants move, the universe pays attention. The dreadnoughts glided forward with slow, terrifying purpose. Their engines burning like captured stars. None of them rushed. None of them hesitated. They advanced in perfect formation. As if every ship shared a single heartbeat, the Tsar Dominion was the first to feel their presence. Their frontline fleets, scattered across human space and guarding stolen outposts, detected enormous energy waves heading straight toward them. At first, Tsar commanders believed it was a sensor mistake, something too large to be real. But when the shapes appeared on their screens, vast Terran warships glowing with power, their confidence evaporated like water and fire. They had celebrated too soon, and now the truth was unfolding in front of them. The first Tsar fleet attempted to open communication, hoping to threaten or intimidate the Terrans again. But no reply came, only silence, cold and heavy. Then, without warning, the Terran dreadnoughts opened fire. The attack was not loud or chaotic. It was clean, precise, and terrifying. Beams of energy cut through Tsar ships as if they were paper. Shields melted instantly. Hulls cracked apart. Entire cruisers vanished in moments. The battle lasted less than 3 minutes. In that short time, the Tsar fleet that had entered human space with laughter and overconfidence was reduced to glowing debris. Across the galaxy, live surveillance feeds captured the destruction. Millions watched in shock as the Tsar's proud warships were erased with unbelievable speed. The dreadnoughts didn't celebrate. They didn't send messages. They simply moved on to the next target, calm and unshakable, for the first time. Alien empires saw what human warfare truly looked like when humanity fought with full strength. They realized that the quiet, creative species they had underestimated had built weapons meant to end wars in minutes. Tsar commanders panicked, ordering reinforcements and sending emergency signals to their empire. But their messages never reached home. Somehow the Terran Dreadnoughts had set up advanced jamming systems around the battlefield, blocking every Tsar transmission. The empire that once mocked humanity for being technologically weak now found itself unable to call for help. Their fleets were isolated, blind and vulnerable, trapped like animals in a cage made of human strategy as the Dreadnoughts pushed deeper into Tsar territory. Conquered worlds began to change, on planets where the Tsar had raised their flags. People looked up to see enormous human ships cutting through the sky. Terran drop forces landed with precision, disabling Tsar bases and freeing civilian populations. Some species had suffered under Tsar rule for decades, and when the Terrans arrived, they saw something they had never expected to see: a liberating army that did not destroy the innocent. Humans didn't fire on cities or homes. They targeted only Tsar military structures, disabling them with careful accuracy. Word spread quickly across these liberated worlds. People whispered in disbelief that the Terrans were not conquerors. They were rescuers. Some citizens even cheered as human soldiers landed, grateful that someone was finally strong enough to fight the Tsar. Meanwhile, the Dreadnoughts continued carving a path through enemy space, leaving behind a trail of freedom rather than destruction. Inside the Tsar dominion, fear replaced pride. Leaders who had once bragged about crushing humanity now hid in fortified bunkers. They sent frantic messages to their allies begging for support, but the galaxy stayed silent. Many empires remembered how the Tsar had boasted about wiping out the Terrans. Now no one wanted to stand between humanity and its revenge. The Tsar were alone, and they knew it. The battles grew shorter, the Dreadnoughts grew closer. Every defensive line the Tsar prepared collapsed faster than the last. They fired everything they had: missiles, plasma, ancient forbidden weapons, but none of it mattered. The Terran ships adapted instantly, their armor shifting and glowing with energy as if it were alive. Some Tsar officers swore that Terran Dreadnoughts almost looked like beasts, like titans of old legends returning to punish the arrogant. As the Dreadnoughts approached the Tsar command center, the Empire's last defenses scrambled desperately into position, but it was too late. Humanity had come too far to stop, and their resolve was stronger than ever. The Terran Dreadnoughts unleashed their final wave of attacks, tearing through the last Tsar fleets with overwhelming power. The command station shook under the impact of the assault. Alarms blaring, walls trembling, Tsar leaders stared at their screens in hopeless silence. They had underestimated the wrong species, and as the final explosions lit up the darkness of space, a single truth spread across the galaxy like a heartbeat: the humans had returned. The humans were unstoppable, and the Tsar dominion, once feared and proud, had become the first to feel the full force of Terran wrath. When the final Tsar command station fell, the blast echoed across the galaxy like a silent scream. It was not just the end of a battle, it was the end of an empire that once believed it could shape the future of the stars. In a single moment, the proud Tsar dominion, the same empire that had mocked humanity and celebrated too early, disappeared from power. Their ships were gone, their leaders defeated, their fleets shattered into drifting pieces of metal. And for the first time in a very long time, the galaxy felt quiet to quiet. Across thousands of worlds, screens went blank. News anchors stopped talking mid-sentence. Reporters stood frozen as they watched the last Tsar defense fall on live feeds. The celebrations that had filled the galaxy only days earlier came to an abrupt stop. No one laughed now. No one clapped. The silence that spread was heavy, like a weight pressing on every mind. Every species watching felt the same cold realization settling into their hearts. They had misjudged humanity completely. Rumors began spreading instantly. Some said the Terran Dreadnoughts had become so powerful that even stars trembled near them. Others claimed humans had created weapons that could tear apart planets in seconds. Most of these rumors were exaggerations, but they came from the fear that now lived inside every observer. The galaxy had gone from amused to terrified in a matter of hours. And the strange part was that the humans did not say a single threatening word. Their silence made everything worse. Silence from a weaker species can be ignored, but silence from a stronger one becomes a message by itself. Many alien governments hurried to rewrite their previous statements. They deleted their mocking speeches, erased their celebrations, and quietly removed any public records where they supported the Tsar invasion. They did not want humanity to remember their earlier arrogance. They feared that humans, now backed by unstoppable warships, would take revenge on anyone who had applauded the Tsar. But humans did not attack anyone. They did not send warnings. They did not demand apologies or tribute. They simply stopped, holding their position in the stars like watchful guardians. This confused the galaxy even more, because for most species, power always came with greed or hunger for control, but humanity showed neither. They had destroyed the Tsar because the Tsar had attacked them, not because they wanted to rule the galaxy. Some diplomats whispered that this made humans even more dangerous because a powerful enemy, with no interest in conquest, was harder to predict. They could not be bribed, tricked, or manipulated. They acted with purpose, not ego. On the worlds that the Terrans liberated from the Tsar, people gathered in the streets, staring at the enormous human ships floating in their skies. They expected soldiers to march out and take control, but instead, the Terrans simply disabled the Tsar machines and left supplies for the civilians. They talked to the leaders of each planet with calm voices, offering help without forcing anything in return. Some of the freed species cried, not because they were afraid, but because humanity showed them a kind of strength the galaxy had forgotten, a strength that protected rather than enslaved. Back in neutral governments, leaders debated endlessly, trying to understand what humanity wanted now. Some feared that humans would declare themselves the rulers of the spiral arm. Others believed the Terrans would retreat into their own territory and remain silent again. A few suggested reaching out with peace offerings, but no one was brave enough to send the first message. The Dreadnoughts' presence made every diplomat cautious, because they all knew one truth: humans did not bluff. If they felt threatened, they would act. And the galaxy had seen what that action looked like slowly. Observations showed that the Terran Dreadnoughts were not moving deeper into foreign space. Instead, they began repositioning themselves around human borders, forming a powerful shield instead of an expanding force. Their engines dimmed, their weapons powered down. They entered a silent guard stance, as if declaring to the galaxy that the war was over. Humanity was not chasing conquest. They were protecting their home, nothing more, nothing less. As this became clear, the galaxy felt something strange rising inside them, not fear, but respect. Humanity had shown that they were not prey, not toys for stronger species, not a young race to be bullied. They were survivors, builders, fighters, thinkers, and protectors. They had risen from silence, not to rule, but to remind the galaxy that their kindness was not weakness, and their patience was not surrender. One by one, nations across the stars stopped fearing Terrans as monsters and began seeing them as a new kind of power, a power that balanced strength with restraint. Some even hoped to become allies with humanity in the future. Others simply watched from far away, knowing that the galaxy had changed forever. And as the last echoes of battle faded into space, the Terran Dreadnoughts stood like silent giants over human borders. They did not speak. They did not move. They simply existed, an unbreakable symbol that humanity had survived, grown, and risen stronger than anyone had ever imagined. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and it would not forget it. The humans were not gone. They were awake, they were prepared, and they would never be underestimated again.